The first half of this game, dead set, was kind of like watching Sharknado. Were you watching something great? No. Were you being thoroughly entertained? Yeah, I was. And by the time the final siren blew, there were encouraging signs in a big way from both sides. So let's talk about the ANZAC Day Eve game. And for the Dees, I know in the thumbnail it says Dees saving their season, now going to 2-5. I love what they've been able to do in the last couple of weeks in the execution of a game plan that just looks like it works. Their offensive handball game is strong, and to be honest, their handball numbers, whilst they are a little bit different to the first 5 weeks of the season, the big change is that they're not actually handballing more efficiently, it's just more effectively. And what do I mean by that? Well, instead of a handball that's not quite hitting the target 6 meters behind them, they're handballing it in front of them. And not every handball is hitting the target, obviously, but even getting that small amount of territory and setting up another contest where they can go out and build on that contested possession game that they thrived on. I think Christian Petrarca had 17 handballs in his 28 disposals. Clary had a similar spectrum of handballs, or at least his most effective disposals seemingly were handballs. That was a great sign for the Dees. They wanted to give Jake Bowie the ball, and what a player he is. And Christian Salem had a bunch of the footy as well, and getting these guys involved. The distributors from an uncontested point of view are the ones that are going to be driving this forward. Caleb Windsor, Xavier Lindsay, Harvey Langford, these are the guys that, with ball in hand, are going to be setting the tone from a territory point of view. And I do feel for Jacob Van Rooyen, and I did feel for Bailey Fritsch last week when it was as clear as day that they needed this kind of ball movement to seemingly thrive. Now, I'm not suggesting JVR is going to come back into this side and kick 50 goals for the rest of the year, but imagine leading up at the ball carrier with that kind of ball movement, especially in that third quarter, where it was legitimately one of the best quarters I've seen Melbourne play in at least the last 18 months, regardless of who the opposition was. I wouldn't blame any Melbourne supporter for just thinking to themselves, where the hell has that been? But now that it's here, let's enjoy it. That youth that is bringing the ball forward, the old heads that are providing that experience. Jack Viney's changed from being a genuine run-with player now who just wants to put a shitload of pressure on, and let's be honest, it's what Jack Steele needs to be doing at St. Kilda with him back in the side. Let's be honest, maybe Marcus Winhager isn't the tagger, but that's a whole nother thing. But obviously the best player on the ground, and it wasn't even close, was the captain. This is extraordinary, and I put it on Twitter this night, or tonight I should say, and I stand by this. Max Gawn is the best ruckman I've seen. Now, granted, I did not watch Simon Madden play live. I have a lot of respect for Madden, and in all honesty, if I was doing my all-time rankings, even if I was taking into consideration guys I've never seen before, Madden is still going to be number 1 for me. I understand Polly Farmer is going to be up there 1 or 2 for a lot of people as well. But in terms of me actually watching footy in front of a TV or at the ground since 2005, it's Max 1, it's Dean Cox 2, and in all honesty, it's probably Sandilands at 3. But the man is simply extraordinary, and even though Richmond are obviously not in a place where they are going to be a contending side anytime soon, he did it against a consensually top 6 to 8 ruckman in the comp in Toby Nankervis, who, by the way, was not bad himself. The clearance numbers were actually identical. It was 38 apiece, split 9 at the centre and 29 at stoppage. So it wasn't as if Gawn's influence was taking place purely and simply at the stoppage. Now, granted, he did have 10 hitouts to advantage, but I think Nankervis had 8, so not a massive difference there in the slightest. And like I said, if clearance numbers are even, I don't really give a damn how many hitouts are going to advantage. If the advantage is not territory, who gives a rat's? But around the ground. Now, of course, Richmond, Adamuze, next time that you're going to play against Melbourne, maybe having the game plan of don't kick it to the dude with the beard might be the way to go. But overall, the encouraging signs for the Tigers were there as well. I'm putting it out there now. I love Richmond's defense, and part of the reason why their rebuild is going better than the one in Western Australia and the one at Arden Street is there just is a lot more safety and security around the defense. West Coast have still got Jeremy McGovern down there, and regardless of what you think of Liam Duggan, having a senior body down there is providing really good fodder for the other guys who are down there. Hoff, Jinby, these kinds of guys. Have doubts about his role as a key defender. Nick Vlosten and Nathan Broad don't need to be superstars down there, but also don't need to expose Tom Brown, even though he was the sub, Luke Traynor, debutant Campbell Gray, who showed some really good signs, Sam Banks, these kinds of guys who are kind of not key defenders, although Gray is, but he doesn't seemingly have the body for it yet, but are also not your pure intercepting kings either. They're kind of stuck in the middle, and both of those two boys can take some pressure off them. Now, Vlastuin had some nightmare moments tonight. I am not denying that for a moment, but his impact is a net positive before the ball is bounced. So that is always going to be a good thing. Poor Steely Green giving away the 50-metre penalties was not great in the slightest, but overall, Richmond played really well. It was one of Thompson Dow's better games, although he did fade out of the contest in the third quarter. He was not the only Tiger to do that, by the way. Even though his stats for the third quarter looked okay, he, along with a few others, my biggest complaint, I suppose, with the Tigers at the moment is that their bridge players, the guys that have had 4 to 6 preseasons, are just the ones that have got more question marks on them. You can't really question the kids. You just want them to get exposed as much as they can. And Richmond's veterans are, of course, shining through. Tom Lynch's 3 goals, 3, the epitome of that. But say someone like Seth Campbell, who I know is not old by any stretch of the imagination, but has some experience. He's had a really killer season. Absolutely, he has. One of his quieter games tonight. And in a 20-point loss, they're the kind of things that you're going to point out. Is it going to be in a way that is a net negative or a ranting lunatic kind of style? Of course not. How stupid would that be? But just a little something to note, that you will know how good Richmond are going, is that when they do lose momentum, and they did lose it a little bit in the first half, managed to wrestle it back where guys like Taranto and Hopper, both who at this point in time are firmly giving me the middle finger in terms of their performance. But they were able to wrestle the ball back. They couldn't do anything when Melbourne went to another gear in that third quarter and completely took the piss. Petrarca took the piss. Gawn, of course, took the piss, and their forward line functioned in a really cool way. Also want to give a big shout out to Tom Sparrow, who's getting, yes, a lot of love on the broadcast, I know, but hey, a little shout out from Daz. He probably won't give a shit, but that's okay. He's getting one anyway. And kind of last but not least out of this game is it was really funny to me listening to David King discover Jake Bowie as if he hasn't already been a pretty good defender for a year and a half, but that was enjoyable, a little bit amusing to me. But overall, I think both supporter groups are pretty happy. Yes, it was a little bit crap the way that Melbourne just took the foot off the pedal when Gawn went off the ground and they thought the game was done. That's not really a concern because the game still was done, and percentage boost is not as important as just getting the W itself. Melbourne winning this game by, say, 38 points was not that big a deal versus 20. That gap is not that large, to be perfectly honest. And Richmond are going to get a lot out of the fact that, yeah, the kids still are good. They got another game into them. They were in it in the first half and showed some fight and punished the Dees for taking the foot off the pedal. As far as I'm concerned, tick across the board is that both of these teams continue to answer some questions. Now, are Melbourne saving their season? They do have West Coast next week. They do have Brisbane and Hawthorn. You'd think that they would drop both of those games. So 3-7 is going to be really hard to come back from. But are they saving themselves from the cesspool of crap that had been served up to them after an 0-5 start? Yeah, they are, and they deserve credit for that, regardless of what you think of Freo and regardless of Richmond being the bottom side in the comp. Richmond won last week, so you got to get credit for beating a team that's in form. So that's what I thought about ANZAC Day Eve, and of course the theatrics were amazing and the pre-game stuff was unbelievable. Love seeing it all. I wish I could go live one day. Third biggest crowd for an ANZAC Day Eve game, so if you were there, credit to you. If you watched it at home and you enjoyed yourself, well, I'm glad you did that. Like the video if you liked the video, subscribe to join the Daz Talks Footy family. There are plenty more ANZAC round coverage coming, so stick around, enjoy yourselves, have a great weekend of footy, and I'll see you tomorrow.